Hey guys, so today we're going to talk about flutes. And if you're not a flute player, I'm sorry, but I am, and this is what I know. And I realize that a lot of you guys don't really know a lot about flute. You are playing flute and you're studying it and you have one, but you don't really know what else is out there. And you might not know what your flute has on it that is different or special or whatever. So, we're going to talk about that. We all kind of know that there's different models and different levels of models. So there's student, intermediate, professional, and handmade. And some of those lines blur together a little bit. So if you don't know exactly what your instrument is, that's not a big deal. Student models will always have closed holes and a C-foot. They're very, very simple. They're very cheaply made generally. And that's just because they're not meant to be played your whole life. They're meant to be a learning tool. Because they're very simple, and that way you don't have to learn 4,000 other things, including like covering the holes and stuff like that. Intermediates can have a C-foot or a B-foot, and generally have open holes, basically always have open holes, and they're still much simpler. They're probably machine-made, and they're probably silver-plated, not sterling or gold or whatever. And then you get into the large, scary range that is professional to handmade. Handmades are part of the professional range, but they're kind of their own special thing because they're ridiculously expensive and everything like that. But there are professional models that are technically not handmade. There's some things that are machine-made, and there's nothing wrong with machine-made parts. It's just there's a little bit less attention paid sometimes. And the materials aren't always as nice. There's nothing wrong with them. They're very nice instruments. I played a Yamaha 600 series for eons, and that's a low-line professional model. But it just depends on your price range and everything like that. And then you have the handmades, which are all handmade. They're super expensive. They're gold, silver, platinum, or wood, whatever. Almost always open hole, though you can special order closed hole. There's nothing wrong with that. And they're generally standard with a B-foot, though C-foot is totally okay. It's all preference at that point. And so is material. For those of you who don't really know, silver is brighter, gold is darker, platinum is really bright. Platinum's most expensive, gold's next, silver is the cheapest, in that it's not $20,000, it's more like 10. Yeah, and you can mix and match. You can have gold head joint on a silver body, silver head joint on a gold body, everything like that. Within the head joint, there are 3 major things that can change the sound. Lip plate is the least of the 3, though it will do a little bit. It's just not enough to be worth it if only the lip plate is a different material. Then there's the riser. The riser is really important and can really change the sound of your instrument. And that's the little piece of metal that connects your lip plate to the body of the head joint. That's probably that's the second line of, or that's the second thing that can change your sound, and then obviously the material of the body can. There's about 4 million different head joint cuts. That's why you have to try 1,000 of them before you can figure out what you want. That's why I'm currently in the process of that. But that's the basic gist of it. There's square cut and round cut, small, big, bore. Like, when you get into head joint cuts, it gets insane. And you're better off just trying things and narrowing it down than really, like, trying to aim for, I want a round cut, undercut, small bore head joint. Like, just order some things and see what happens. So then you have wall thickness. And within silver, there are 3. There's 0.014, 0.016, and 0.018, so thin wall, normal wall, and heavy wall. And each one will change the sound of the instrument and how it resonates a little bit. So thin wall is a little brighter. Normal wall is normal. It's not super dark, not super bright, but it's kind of in between. You can still get both sounds, which is why most people play it, because it's the most flexible. And then heavy wall is going to be darker. You're going to get more of a gold sound, just because the metal is thicker and will be harder to resonate. And It's all personal preference. None of these things make your flute worse or better. It's just better for you. Which is why instrument trials are really important. So those are all the basics of the actual flute itself, and then there's about 4,000 things you can add. The most common two are split E and C-sharp trill. C-sharp trill adds an extra key, and it helps you trill from B to C-sharp and C to C-sharp and a few other things like high G to A natural, and it's kind of a fun key. It really helps with the Bear Flute Concerto. I don't know if I could actually play it without it now. But, so yeah, I have a C-sharp trill. Split E is basically a high E facilitator. It helps you get the high E, which is a really gross note on the flute. Basically, it connects one of the right-hand keys to a left-hand key that you don't depress yourself. It's one of the ones that's connected. It's really easy to put on an offset G key flute. A lot of makers are now putting them into inlines. They're harder to do, so it's less common, but it's not impossible. You just have to look for them. It's just the way the mechanism works. It's harder to put a split E on an inline flute. They're now figuring it out, so if you want to play inline but also have a split E, that's a possibility. You just have to kind of look for them. In connection with the split E, there's also what is actually called a high E facilitator, or otherwise known as a donut, which is basically this little round insert that they put into the key that's depressed by a split E. So it's the key just past your G sharp key. I can't think of the name of the actual key right now, but it's one of the closed hole keys that is connected to your G sharp, or it's connected to your G key, sorry. And they'll put like this little round insert into it, and it makes the high E a little easier. Some people are really, really against them, but a lot of people say that they don't change the sound apart from helping with the high E, so if you like it, go ahead. You can also have a D sharp roller, which puts a roller onto the D sharp key, which is your standard foot joint key, like the one you almost always have down. And that helps you get from D sharp to C sharp to C to B to all the low notes. It's one of the ones that's at least the least useful in that you can do all the things that it provides without a lot of help, but some people really like it. I just don't think it's worth the money, but that's my personal opinion. If you have one, I'm not judging you. And then there's engraving and everything like that. Some people get flutes engraved because they like it and they think it's pretty. Some people get flutes engraved because it helps the flute not slip because they sweat a lot. Some people really hate engraving and won't play a flute that has engraving. It's all of this is personal preference, but if you know what the options are, it's a lot easier to figure out what you want. So that was like a really brief overview of everything. I probably missed something, but it's one of these things that just having an idea of what your options are is really a lot more helpful than just going in blind. So, yeah. I hope that's helpful in some way, and I will see you guys next week.